All right, Kendall, roll call for votes.
Doug Neely,
Aye.
Karen Morey,
Aye.
Troy Bollinger,
Aye.
Jeff Sargent,
Abstain.
Derek Kugel, Alicia Hammock,
Aye.
Andy Crop,
Aye.
Sean Datchler,
Aye.
Brent Haverkamp.
Aye.
Okay, and to correct the original roll call, Jeff has now joined us. Welcome, Jeff. Greg, you are up next for the expansion of the sixth. Oh, excuse me. Are there any public members? I see staff. Are there any public comments? Seeing and hearing none, Greg, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Karen Morey. Good evening, members of the PrAC. My name is Greg Williams, and I am the director of the library. Thank you very much for allowing me to join your meeting tonight. I will endeavor to be brief. I'm here tonight just to provide you an update on our 6th Street book drop expansion, to give you a little information about what we've done to date so far, to show you some pictures, and then to just ask for your support for continuing to have the expanded book drop there. So as I think many of you probably know, the library had 2 areas that we have book drops where patrons can return books. There is a small unit that has usually been in front of the Carnegie section of the library, and there's also a double unit that has been along 6th Street. Historically, that unit has always been undersized. It requires an extensive amount of staff time to go out and empty, even during normal times. When the COVID pandemic hit, the capacity of that, the shortcoming of the capacity of that book drop was greatly exacerbated. We had a lot of materials coming back. We've got ever-evolving materials quarantine guidelines, which slows down our processing of materials. And we identified that one of the things that would help address some of those issues we were having was expanding the capacity of that book drop along 6th Street. So being COVID pandemic times, this was something we had to do kind of quickly. We did reach out to various city departments to make sure that there were no code issues, permitting issues, historical issues that we needed to be concerned about. We did consult with the city attorney to make sure that we were okay with putting something on park property that would not run afoul of the city charter. I did not have an opportunity to come to the PrAC and discuss this before now, for which I do apologize. However, we did reach out to Mr. Reed just to make sure that he was up to date on this, and I believe he was very helpful with helping us to move forward. So tonight, if you don't mind, I am just going to show you a few pictures, some before and after pictures, and then I will be happy to entertain any questions you might have. So, oh, and I'm not sure who the host of the meeting is, but Kendall, would you mind giving me sharing screen permissions real quick? Okay. I think.
Can you see it, Greg? I have it up.
No, I'm not seeing anything. I'm still unable to share my screen. Are you going to share your screen with the PowerPoint on it?
Can you see it? Can everybody see it?
I'm not seeing anything but Greg.
No, I'm not seeing anything.
Can you describe it to us, Greg?
So yes.
Come on.
And let's see. There we go. There we go. I think it's coming up. All right. Thank you, Kendall.
Got it.
Sorry about
Great.
that.
Okay.
All right.
So next slide, please.
Mhm.
Technology. It's wonderful. So here are two pictures of the before and after. So along the left-hand picture is what the single bush crop unit along 6th Street looked like beforehand. On the right is a picture of the expanded bush crop. So as you can see, we just purchased another identical unit, put it right next to the existing unit along 6th Street. Most of our patrons are used to returning materials along 6th Street. We knew that was the place that we wanted to. We wanted to put it to make it as convenient and familiar for patrons as possible. Next slide, please. This is a before and after from the reverse angle coming out from the library towards 6th. So you can see there's the back. That's where we get into collect materials. On the left is before, and on the right is after. Next slide, please. We did measure the clearance between the edge of the new expanded unit and the edge of the concrete planter there, just to make sure there was plenty of room, especially for ADA accessibility. And so as you can see, even with the second book drop there, it's a little over 8 feet of clearance in and out there, and it aligns pretty well with the indentation in the sidewalk, the wheelchair ramp up the sidewalk. Next slide, please. Just a couple more pictures just from a little farther away across the street, just so you can get an idea of what it looks like within kind of the context of the whole library/park structure and area. And last slide. And once again, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the impact that expanding the book drop is going to have for us. On the left, as I mentioned, in pre-COVID times, we were having to empty that book drop unit every hour. And there's a little note there that I found in the circulation area that reminds our staff, yes, please get the book drop every hour. And that's just because the volume of returns we have, especially with the expanded building, greatly exceeds the capacity of a single book drop. On the right is just showing you that once we were able to add that expanded book drop unit, we were able to provide the ability for patrons to return materials to the library 24/7, which we were not able to do, especially during COVID times. The expanded capacity also makes it a lot easier when we have extended closures over weekends or long weekends. In the past, we would have to send somebody in on a holiday, possibly twice during a long weekend, just to empty that book drop, just to make sure it didn't overflow. Now we can actually get through a long weekend without having to have somebody come in extra to empty. And that is the end of my, my slides, my formal presentation. If there are any questions, I would be more than happy to try to answer them.
Okay. PrAC members, anybody with a question? I see no hands. Well, apparently, Greg, you've done a wonderful job.
Okay, great.
I want to thank you, especially for getting the city attorney's opinion. And I will say, I hang in the library park for a long time sometimes. And I have noticed how often staff are coming out having to empty the drop boxes. So thank you for making clear this is not just a COVID-19 issue. This is an ongoing issue for your staff. Would anybody like a motion to approve this expansion?
I'm sorry. I'll make the motion, although the expansion's already done.
Well, you can make them dig it back out.
I made the motion.
All right, thank you, Doug. That was Doug Neely. Second?
So are we amending the motion to leave the expansion rather than a motion to make the expansion?
A motion to approve the expansion.
To approve the expansion.
Yes.
All right,
Okay,
by Doug
then I will
Neely.
second the amendment of the motion.
And you are?
Troy.
Thank you, Troy Bollinger. All right, any further questions, discussion? Seeing no hands, Kendall, roll call, please.
Doug Neely,
Right.
Karen Maury,
Aye.
Troy Bollinger,
Aye.
Jeff Sargent,
Aye.
Derek Kugel, Alicia Hammond,
Aye.
Andy Crump,
Aye.
John Datchler,
Aye.
Brent Haverkamp.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Greg.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your support, and thank you for providing us a wonderful location to have a library for the community. We really love being in Library Park, so thank you very much.
All right. Okay, next is, and I'm laughing about this. If you have an off-leash dog area, why do you abbreviate it ODLA, not OLDA, which is the first letters of those words?
Typo, sorry.
I was chuckling at that as I was going through all the supporting material. Denise, Kendall, who's presenting?
Denise?
Denise?
Yep.
Oh.
So I know that we met and discussed the OLDA. Now I'm reading it backwards as well as writing it backwards. So the off-leash dog areas, just a little background. I didn't actually do this project, so this is just background history information. Last time we talked about it was in February. Scott Archer originally initiated this pilot project in 2015. I believe the signs were done during the first year Phil Lewis was here. And so the signs actually were placed on each of these sites. The sites are Barclay Park, Wesley Lynn Phase 2 undeveloped area, and Park Place Park. So once the rules were established, the signs were put up, and those were done, I would say 3 years and change. The pilot program was initially discussed as a year-long time frame to test run it and get feedback. It's been run quite a bit longer. So the feedback came in November, I believe, of 2019 in the form of a survey online. That was distributed to everybody a while ago. So we've seen the survey results. I think they're also attached to this staff report. So at this point, I think we're looking at the recommendation, I believe in February, was for the committee, the subcommittee to get back together and propose a recommendation. So I know that there are recommendations on this report. Kendall kind of drafted a few recommendations, and it's really up to this advisory group to decide what the next steps they want to take in this park area of off-leash dog areas. So the options that were presented were to develop a new dog park subcommittee, increase public outreach, choose a site and create a budget, create a proposal that addresses issues such as location, funding, maintenance, and enforcement. And so that's where we're at.
Okay, and yeah, in the February meeting, Jeff, you may have missed this bit of fun. We appointed an off-leash dog area committee and made you the chair, even though you were absent,
Yay.
but then never communicated that to you. So, and hang on a second here, I need to check for hands. I'm not seeing hands. Anybody? Question?
Yeah,
All right. Oh, yes, Doug?
yeah, I was trying to raise my hand.
Okay, I'll take it.
Now, we're reforming a committee, is that correct?
Correct. Well, no, at this
subject-
point, we need a motion to form a new subcommittee.
That's
And
what-
this time we'll allow Jeff to volunteer if he wants to. So Doug Neely is moving that we form a new subcommittee
Doug
to
Neely
assist.
is, yeah, Doug asked the question, and Doug is now making a motion to form a new subcommittee. And that's the subcommittee of our PrAC, right?
Correct. And this would include Denise's additional recommendations.
Yes. And I will not volunteer because this is my last year on PrAC.
All right, is there a second?
Oh, I'll second it.
I'm sorry, that is whom?
Jeff.
Thank you. Brave man. All right, roll call.
Doug Neely,
Aye.
Karen Mooring,
Aye.
Troy Bollinger,
Aye.
Jeff Seidert,
Aye.
Derek Kugel, Alicia Hammock,
Aye.
Andy Crump,
Aye.
John Datchler,
Aye.
Brent Haberkamp.
Aye.
All right, that passes. Now, do we have a volunteer to chair said subcommittee?
I'll do it. That's fine.
And
Jeff.
that is Jeff again? Oh, thank you, Jeff. This time you're here. Anyone else who wants to serve on this committee?
Alicia Hammock will.
Okay, so we have Jeff and Alicia. I will also say, and Jeff, I can help you come up with these contacts. Bill Daniels and Lisa Novak, who had previously been on PrAC and had worked on this, had expressed an interest in continuing to serve on a subcommittee if asked to.
Yes, absolutely.
So email me and I'll give you the contact information for the two of them.
Okay.
Any other volunteers from the current PrAC? Okay, I'm a kitty cat person, so I'm not volunteering. All right, Denise, do you need anything else from us on that?
I have a question of her, if I might.
Yes, please.
Denise, in the recommendations, I just can't remember. I know I've had people come up to me and wondering if there was going to be a fenced dog park and off-leash dog park. Is that among the recommendations you have?
It was not, as we're currently building a fenced dog park at Tyronis Woods Memorial Park.
Right, yes. Okay,
But that is also something I assume the subcommittee can discuss, because I think some of the feedback had concerns about Barkley Park. And so this is a committee to support Denise, meet with Denise, and come up with answers, okay? And, okay, I'm scrolling down through my agenda stuff, but the feedback on the dog park is extensive. All right, Pete, it looks like we are to Heritage Stand nominations.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Good. Well, thanks for the opportunity to present tonight. We are discussing a prior nomination of trees in the Park Place Park. It was back in February of this year that PrAC had already seen this nomination come before you. And since that time, there's been a number of policy changes with respect to trees citywide. And in light of some of those things and other issues, planning and park staff are recommending that the PrAC consider a revised proposal to move forward with the nomination of some of the trees in the Park Place Park, and then propose that others not be nominated due to various issues. We also want to recognize that trees that we were proposing not to move forward on, such as those surrounded by poison oak, or which are not visible, or which are on a steep slope, will already be protected by both city permit requirements, which require a tree removal permit on all city-owned land. And also the city commission, and you all have already heard a draft policy for removal on city-owned land, which includes elevated levels of alternative analysis, public notification, and mitigation for removal of large mature trees. So with that, I just want to show you the original site plan. And we can talk in a little more detail about that. Let's see. Can I share my screen?
Pete, you should be able to share your screen.
Yeah. And, okay. There it is. I got. Can you see that?
It's coming, yep.
Okay, so the nomination includes 19 Gary Oak, 2 Douglas firs, and a row of Atlas cedars. The oaks are all demarcated with an O. The 2 fir trees are down here in yellow, and the Atlas cedars are aligned down here outside of that yellow box. 6 of those. Now, when you visit the site, the ones that are visible are the ones that are close to the edge of the clearing here. And you can probably see the tops of some of these other oaks, but the ones that are further up, you can't. And it is not a criterion for designation that a heritage tree be publicly visible. However, it is kind of important when you consider access and visibility for people to be able to appreciate trees. We have not analyzed the condition of each and every one of these trees in this nomination. The recommendation that PRAC made previously was that all of the trees should move forward with the exception of those that are in decline. And, you know, we don't know at this point which ones are and which are not in decline. So that's the situation with the condition of the trees. And now I'd like to talk briefly about what nomination really means. Nomination as a heritage stand is a celebratory, honorary thing. It is not intended to be a regulatory thing. It does confer special status on that stand of trees or individual trees, such that the city commission would really be the only body to remove trees from that designation. But as I mentioned previously, Park Place Park is zoned institutional, and as such, tree removal on any non-residential property in the city is subject to review of a tree removal permit, which includes, in most cases, an arborist report. And that arborist report is intended to give you an idea of the condition of the tree and whether it is a hazard or not. In addition to that, the draft policy for tree removal on public lands goes a few steps further. It includes a 14-day public notice period, and trees over a certain size would actually be triggered for city commission review. On top of that, there's requirements, as you've already heard about this, I'm not going to go into the policy again, to reuse the wood if possible. And then the number of trees that you have to replace it with is based on the diameter of the tree. So those are the bare bones of the current policies and the draft policy that is being considered moving forward. And with these things in place, there are adequate protections and mitigation requirements for trees in city parks. That said, we do understand that the community treasures these trees and really, really wants to celebrate them. We do provide plaques for designation of trees that are nominated on private property. You know, it's a nice plaque and it says the approximate age of the tree, its common name, its scientific name, and the year it was designated. So the recommendation that staff is making can be changed by PRAC or recommended to be a little bit different. I just wanted to pull that up. So staff's recommending that PRAC consider revising these designations to only include trees that are in good condition, safely accessible, and visible to park visitors. And then based on that basic recommendation, we can do a little more analysis on these trees and which trees actually meet that criteria in order to move it forward to the city commission. We would also let the nominating parties know, and they have the opportunity to talk about it, and the Natural Resources Committee as well would be aware of PRAC's recommendation. So thanks, and I welcome any questions you have.
Okay, Pete, I'm going to start off with one. Is this relative to groves or whatever we call them?
Yeah, stands.
Stands, thank you.
Mm.
Or also individual trees, because I know some individual trees at the cemetery have been nominated.
Yeah,
Is this more
cemetery
for
trees
stands?
were all nominated. There were 3 in the cemetery that PRAC approved. Similar recommendation, but I think the park staff were a little more supportive of that because it was a better known and accessible situation.
So moving
And we
ahead,
can
are
talk
you more
about that.
interested in stands, or
Pardon?
do you want the new policy to apply to any tree on city property that could be designated?
Well, the recommendation is, I suppose you could say, we would recommend this to look at this, in this case, a stand, because it's more than one tree. Individual trees, it doesn't matter if it's a stand or an individual tree, it's still going to be covered under the tree removal policy that I mentioned. I think really what the difference between a stand and a tree designation is, you're probably going to get some economies of scale because you only have to buy, we only have to buy fewer plaques and that kind of thing. But realistically, that's up to you all and to the Natural Resources Committee.
Okay, Kendall, I don't see Jonathan on tonight.
Yeah.
Is there a staff position on this?
Jonathan's out tonight. Denise can chime in if she would like, because she's been dealing with this for quite some time. The major concern that we have, and I'll reiterate what Pete said, and this is information that we shared with Pete, is accessibility in some of the trees that may be diseased or need consistent pruning or location. Those are all issues that we're having to navigate. We support the program, but we feel like that we need to identify specific trees, specific areas that can be nominated. And I think that would help alleviate a lot of the back and forth with the process.
Okay, I have a hand up from Brent.
Yes. Hi, Pete. Hey,
Hi.
can you go back to the picture that shows the aerial view of Park Place?
Yeah. Oop, sorry.
That's okay.
Mark, please, come on.
So Park Place is my park. I go here every day with my dog, by the way. So I guess my big question is, I'm not seeing this area up here where you see the top sick, all the oaks and everything. I'm not aware of any trails that go up there where people can view these trees. I think that they're all covered with forest and everything. The only trees that I know that are visible to the public are the Atlas cedars down here at the bottom, C1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I guess my question is I understand and I support by all means the, preserving trees and everything, but if people can't see them or enjoy them, I'm not seeing the purpose of putting them on the heritage site other than it being a rare species or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I visited the area too, and I did not see any trails. I did not want to walk up the hillside.
No.
And it's partly, in fact, the entire area that you see in the yellow square is within the geologic hazard overlay district as well, because it's a fairly steep slope, and there are restrictions on tree cutting within geologic hazard overlay district as well. But I believe the firs, based on photographs that were part of the nomination, you can see here that there are definitely some oaks and firs that are visible. They're up on the bank above the park, above the road a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So here's another view of, this is a view of the Atlas cedars.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So my other question to you, Pete, is I believe I heard you say that plaques are provided for private property, but not public property.
Well, we haven't done any public property nominations yet, so we haven't really tested that idea. It's a, when this program originally began, its intent was, kind of private property focused, where you got a voluntary, a consenting landowner who wanted to designate the tree, and it grew to something more than that over the years.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
would
have
highly
a question.
support getting a plaque for the Atlas cedars down below, because they're incredibly beautiful. They are in view of the public, and it would serve the public in multiple ways in terms of education. For the Atlas cedars. If I remember correctly, I believe they are indigenous to the Middle East or Lebanon. I think that, if I remember from February, I'm not certain, but I would highly support, if something's going to be put on a heritage tree site and is for the celebratory reasons that you mentioned, I think it should be honored with a plaque for the public so that they understand that these are special and for all the reasons.
Certainly.
Okay, and Pete, this is Karen. I thought we had a white oak stand in the upper yard at Waterboard that had been designated.
That is correct. Back in 2010, I think it was, the city commission at the time voted to designate Waterboard Park as a heritage grove. So yeah, it's been done. There are no signs there yet.
Okay, thank you. Doug, I'm guessing you have something to say.
Yeah, I can't find my hand.
Go ahead. I know you have something to contribute.
The first, I got about 3 questions, I guess. Well, probably more, depending on how it goes. Has the nominator been informed of this new restriction?
They were on the email that went out for the meeting, so, but I haven't heard from them.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the Heritage Grove at Waterboard Park. A lot of those trees aren't accessible, nor are they visible. I would surely think that the age of the tree should be considered in any kind of nomination process, whether it's visible or not. And just as an additional protection, I understand your statement about the about there's other protections for trees that are publicly owned, but given the amount of effort that has come forward, you've got Dee Dee here indicated as a nominator, but I know that oh, her name is escaping me, who uses Waterboard Park, Park,
Lisa Novak, yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
Lisa Novak, thank you,
Yep.
has been very, very much involved in this process as well.
Yeah.
And I really feel uncomfortable putting that recommendation that they only be visible and accessible.
Okay, anybody else?
Karen, it's Denise. So one thing on the Atlas cedars that John and I have discussed that makes us concerned about them being a nominated tree is that they currently sit on a bench with an elevation drop to the playground. And that gives us some concern, one, on that side, because the roots are going into the playground, and the ones that were impeding the playground installation, that doesn't degrade the trees at that point, but we had noticed it's recently that we're getting some limb drop out of the Atlas cedars. And also, if you notice to the other side, so if you're looking at the picture of the Atlas cedars, to the left is the playground with the elevation bench and drop. To the right is a road. It's a right-of-way. And that would be what we would consider something that starts to compact the roots. So with those two considerations, those are things that concern us over time if they are nominated that could degrade the trees. And then we would be looking at an expense to try and retain those trees' health. So that was something that we did consider and just want to make you aware of.
Well, if I might, I think those are kinds of restrictions that are fine for not including as a heritage tree, but that's not what was put forward. Visible and accessible was put forward, not whether they might impair some existing facility or roadway that's there. That's something I probably could accept, but this broad thing about visible and accessible, I really have a hard time with.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up.
Yes, you do.
Oh, there went Sean.
Brent also has another question too.
All right, Sean, go.
I just kind of agree with Doug and wanted to point that out, that to me, the purpose of the designation isn't necessarily so everybody can see it. It's because the tree or the stand is significant in some way. And the fact that it may be in the back slope of the park really should be irrelevant if we're trying to preserve and protect these trees. Just because it's not out for the general public to see at face value should probably be irrelevant. If the tree has a potential of hazard, that draws concern. I also have some concern about designating trees when they haven't, if I understand what Pete said correctly, if the research on the health of the trees isn't complete, I think that it's premature to approve a designation. So those are kind of my two thoughts.
I just want to reiterate that whether or not the nomination occurs, they will be subject to the existing tree removal permits and the policy that is under consideration for additional notification for tree removal on city-owned lands, whether or not this happens.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, that's kind of my point. So if because your initial statement said that these designations are to honor the tree, and if we don't know the health of the tree, it seems premature to honor the tree or the stand, in my opinion.
And I seem to recall that Jonathan had some ratings on some of these trees. All right, I see no other hands up, and honestly, I'm at a loss as to what we would move. If someone is comfortable making a motion, please make it. Otherwise, I'd suggest that we postpone this to next month with more clear direction.
Yeah, and if I might, there's no indication of what trees would be nominating anyway on these maps that I've seen. I might have missed it, but so I'm not sure which of the trees are excluded and which are included in their recommended nomination process.
All right, so are we comfortable
I move,
asking for further information next month?
Yeah. I move for a continuance. Doug,
Is there a second?
Brent Haverkamp, I second.
All right, roll call.
Doug Neely,
aye.
Karen Morey,
Aye.
Troy Bollinger,
Aye.
Jeff Sargent,
Aye.
Derek Koval, Alicia Hammock,
Aye.
Andy Crump. Andy? I see you, Andy.
I said aye.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't hear you. John Datchler.
Aye, and I must say you're awful hard to hear tonight.
Sorry, I'm coming down with something.
There you go.
Brent Haverkamp.
But I'd like to know what information is coming next month.
My expectation would be a more clear motion and possibly having Jonathan present to talk about the individual tree concerns.
Great, thank you.
All right, are we good? All right, on to number 5. This is Pete again. OC 2040 Comprehensive Plan Update.
All right. So Kendall, do you want to handle the PowerPoint?
Sure.
And because I'm going to take notes on my end
All right.
as everyone's talking.
All right.
Okay, great. So thanks again. The OC 2040 project is the city's update of the comprehensive plan. We've been in the beginning of the stages of the visioning process for approximately 3 months. Right now, we are doing what are called community conversations. We are doing these outreach community conversations with all of our project advisory team members and relying on them to do these as well. It is basically a set of simple questions that anybody can use in the city to help the planning staff and the city commission understand what people love about Oregon City today and what they think should be done to improve things in the future. Next slide, please. So the community vision is a very well-known process in Oregon, and not so much in other states, but it's a process of getting the broadest possible input from as many community members as you can prior to making any policy and goal decisions to update your comprehensive plan. The city's comprehensive plan is a document which controls land use, but it also controls decisions about infrastructure, transportation, recreation, tourism, the economy, all sorts of things which are not necessarily land use related. Comprehensive plans must conform to statewide planning goals in Oregon. And they also need to have actionable policies. And whenever we make decisions about major projects or large scale land use decisions, zoning, when we update any of our large plans like the Parks and Recreation Plan or the Transportation Plan or all these other plans, those are called ancillary documents to the comprehensive plan. And none of that work can be done prior to developing a vision. And the vision asks a basic question: what makes Oregon City special today? And what should we strive to preserve? And what about Oregon City would you like to change in the future? Next question. Schedule that we're on right now has been affected a little bit, obviously, by wildfire and COVID and smoke and various other things, as well as funding delays. For the same reasons, the state has had funding delays, which are going to probably bump out our schedule that you see here about a month or possibly two. But the community vision that you see in green here is expected to go through late November, possibly into December. And once it's adopted by resolution of the City Commission is when we start the comprehensive plan outreach portion of the project. And that plan update is when we go back out to all the groups again. And based on the vision, we start drafting the comprehensive plan chapters. Next slide. So I just want to begin by asking the group this question. And it is why, the first question is, why did you choose to live or work in Oregon City? And as you respond, I'm just going to start taking notes. So please open it up and be as candid as possible.
Well, I'll start. The reason why we moved to Oregon City, we actually, before we came to Oregon City, we were in Zimbabwe. And we came back, got an apartment in actually Gladstone, and my wife saw this wonderful Victorian house that was up for sale. I didn't have a job at the time, and I did have enough money for a down payment, and I was very nervous, but I will tell you, it's the historical nature of the city, I think, is probably one of the major reasons I chose Oregon City. And the fact that I found Oregon City a very easy community to get involved in. And I think that was a secondary thing that had come up.
Could you repeat the last thing you said, Doug?
Yeah, that the community was a very easy thing to get involved in. And that was also a major reason for me making this permanent home.
You mean getting involved in city decisions and clubs?
That's partially it, but it was very inviting to and people from the McLaughlin Memorial Association came in. There was an old home forum, which no longer existed, but that was a very easy organization to become involved in. So it wasn't only city entities, it was also community entities.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Alicia?
Hi, I'm in Oregon City. I had lived in Portland prior. I've been here about 16, 17 years, and I'm here because my now husband was living here with his 2 kids, and we got married, and so I moved here. And I will say at the time, I was very reluctant to leave Portland. I had a great little place in Belmont, But after raising my two stepdaughters from grade school all the way through, and then now my son, what a great community in terms of, you know, going to football games on Friday, seeing your neighbors, being, you know, being away from it all, and how easily Oregon City is in terms of accessing the outdoors. So I have, well, and I was also really concerned about the lack of diversity in Oregon City. That is starting to change slowly. But, you know, it is a great place to live.
Okay, Pete, any more questions for Alicia?
No, anybody else?
Andy?
Yes. I don't know if I should say why I live here and why I enjoy living here.
Sure.
I moved here because of economic reasons initially. So, but since I lived here and I knew within the first month, I really like the small town feel of Oregon City, near a big city. I'm not a big city type person. I grew up in the country on farms and things like that, but small town type of feel. Our politics isn't overly political like maybe other cities nearby. But what makes Oregon City special, at least, is the small town feel. And like Alicia, that a lot of the the lack of diversity, I've always had challenge. I'm a foodie, so lack of restaurants. Been like at least to be desired, unless with the exception of the last maybe 10 years or so.
And that's starting to change too, big time.
With that. Yeah. As far as preserving, I mean, I really like the whole. I'm running a blank of the Willamette Falls waterfront project. I mean, I'm really excited by that, and then continue to enhance our downtown, you know, the city, and make it a friendly place to go visit, so, and go out to eat.
Okay, Brent?
Hey, Pete. So very similar to Andy, the reason why I chose to live and work in Oregon City is for both economic and geographic reasons. I am a native Oregonian, and I've known it, I can remember being a little kid in elementary school and learning about the history of Oregon City. So it's always had a kind of a special place in my heart. What makes Oregon City special today is, you know, it's the epicenter of Oregon. It's where Oregon started. It's history. It's the pioneer culture. To me, that's really the essence of Oregon City. The fact that the Oregon Trail ended down, you know, in this town is just incredible. So the history and the pioneer culture is really what makes it special to me. The small town feeling. I love Main Street. These are the things that make it special for me today. What should we strive to preserve or enhance? I think part of it is the Oregon City culture or historical culture, but I would like to see the paper mill is an incredible eyesore, and that we need to develop that area somehow. And I don't know what the answer is to that, but the paper mill area needs to be developed. Whether we turn it into LEED certified buildings, that is a combination of housing and commerce and whatever. I don't know what that answer is, but that's something that I feel that Oregon City needs to address.
Okay, Jeff.
Okay, well, I moved up here to be with my kids, moved up here in 2016. And when they were looking for a place to live, we decided we wanted to live near the city, but kind of on the outskirts. So they found a place in Hunter Heights, which is just outside the city limits.
Mm-hmm.
And being a landscape architect with a history minor, my interest rose quickly because of the amount of trees and shrubbery and what have you, the architecture, and of course the history of Oregon City. So I think that's what makes it very special to me. besides the fact that it's kind of outside of the main metropolitan area. It's just it has a very easy lifestyle and a very easy feel to it. So it's got a small town atmosphere within a big metropolitan area, and that's what we like.
Great, thank you.
All right, Sean?
Why did we move here? My wife and I both work in Lake Grove, and frankly, we couldn't afford to live in that area. And so we chose the east side primarily because of its proximity to the mountains. And Oregon City, compared to the other ones, was closer to the edge. We wanted to be on the fringe. We didn't want to be deep into the metropolitan area. Concerns about that, though, that I have now is and I don't know if it's relevant to the conversation, but truly my deep concerns right now are the traffic on 205, but that combined with tolling, because I completely disagree with that. And frankly, I wish the city would come up against that. Same way with the new conversation about a bicycle bridge across the river or the option of closing the Arch Bridge. It just seems like there's some predetermined things that ODOT's going to try to shove on us in the near future. And I sure hope the city's ready to protect its citizens, if you will. The other thing that was important to us about Oregon City is we always felt like we were in a unique city as opposed to just any old suburb. I think there's, and all that has to do with the history element, but the geography, the topography, the river, all of those elements.
Okay, Troy.
Topography a lot, that's interesting.
Okay, Troy?
Well, I came here in 2010, married at the time, and my wife's family kind of needed us to move in and kind of help them take care of some things. And so we did that. And then they no longer had need for me. So found myself single and decided to stay. So then the question really is, why did I stay? Well, stayed for the community. Similar to Doug, I got involved with the city, mainly the school district. So I stayed because a couple of reasons. Like the schools, my kids, I still have a son in the high school, but at the time he was in grade school. My daughter was in the high school. So I stayed for the schools, also the location being I guess just the location of being in the metro area, but not right in the middle of the city, still a city environment, but a smaller community. And then just the community feel of everything here. So that's why I decided to stick around.
Okay, and Pete, you probably know most of my answers, but
No, I want to hear them again.
I grew up in Oak Lodge, but my father had a business in Oregon City, and I knew a lot of the descendants of the original pioneers, which got me interested in the history of the city. I've lived in and out of Oregon City, also Gladstone, Milwaukee, unincorporated county. And I served on the library board as an at-large member from the unincorporated area, but got interested in city politics, attending meetings, way too many. And when the opportunity arose, I wanted to have things closer. So I moved into the city so I could have public transportation available, walkable streets, 2 plaid pantries within a short distance, and oh yeah, a new police department going up in my backyard. But convenience, city life, and the history of this city.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so your next question is, what makes Oregon City special today?
Well, let's move on because they're the same questions being asked different ways here. So
Okay, take me to where you want to go.
Next slide, please, Kendall. So what about Oregon City would folks like to change in the future, and what can improve?
Okay, let's go back through, starting with Doug.
Well, it's the things that we really haven't been able to do are the things that concern me. It includes the landfill site, includes the east side of the cove. These things have been going on for years, and we don't seem to be able to move on them. It seems to take forever for the urban renewal district to find something that works at the two pieces of property they own on Main Street. It seems like some things are encumbered, but I think many of them are beyond the city's control, but we're not able to respond like I would like to visions that had faced barriers that I think are still good visions, and we seem to get mired in a lot of things. I'd like to say another thing, it might apply to another question you have. There have been previous visions that have been implemented and then forgotten about. And the one thing that occurs to me are the murals in the Main Street area. They were big deals, and people were really invested in them, were really excited about them. And now that's no big deal. And I understand city facades are down there are changing and so forth, but a lot of those backs of those buildings that can be visualized from the promenade, that's a great place to put some more murals. So some of the things that people visualized early on, which I think were good ideas, seem to be lost in the process of some of the progress we're making, and that concerns me a great deal.
Okay, Alicia.
Hi, I would say the park infrastructure for me is a big issue, just in terms of the age of many of the parks, and the pathways and the turf, and there's a lot of parks that just need love. And I think if there could be a steady funding source for the city to support, that would be phenomenal. I also think the city would benefit from a designated recreation center. The city has grown tremendously. The pool complex and the multi-purpose room can only accommodate so much. It rains a lot in Oregon. To be able to have more indoor spaces to actually accommodate the needs of growing families would be fantastic. And then I would think, for me, the third thing is what I'd like to see improve and change in the future would be traffic. I live right by the corner of Malala and 205, or pardon me, Malala and 213, right by Clackamas Community College. The amount of traffic, even when there isn't construction happening on Malala, it has grown unbelievably, and getting in and out of our neighborhood is incredibly difficult. We've almost gotten hit many times just trying to cross 213 to get to CCC to walk, and that's just our little corner of the world. Many other parts of Oregon City are having issues as well.
Okay, Andy.
Well, I have to apologize to Alicia because my primary thing has always been economic development, which sometimes ends up being more traffic. So I do apologize for that. But some of the two things that Doug had brought up was the first two things in my mind. This is the original plans for the old dump site behind Home Depot, as well as the Cove. And so a couple of those types of things. I'm really enjoying seeing a lot of the improvements up along Malala Avenue and the new improvements that they're going to be doing. And hopefully that will help with some congestion and whatnot. But those are kind of the main things that I always think about.
Brent?
Hey, Pete.
Hey.
So basically 4 things. And thank you, Alicia, for talking about parks infrastructure. So the 4 things ties into what Alicia talked about, was the parks infrastructure. She's spot on. A lot of our parks need love, The paths in some of these parks and the maintenance are horrible. In fact, I doubt somebody like in a wheelchair or with a disability would be able to utilize the park. So definitely parks infrastructure. Number two, and it also ties into what Alicia talked about earlier, it's not necessarily a change in traffic, but more pedestrian friendly. I would really love to see Oregon City become more pedestrian friendly, make it easier for pedestrians to use Oregon City, make it safer for pedestrians to use Oregon City. An example might be in some of the crosswalks, making it more narrow so the gap to cross from one side to the other is narrowed. Number three, again, the paper mill, you have it in a picture, something needs to be dealt with it. It needs to be either be developed, or I don't know what the answer is, but the paper mill needs to be developed. And finally, the Willamette Falls project needs to be continued and finished to completion. That's
Jeff?
it.
Oh, did I cut you off, Brent?
Nope, I'm done, Karen. Thank you.
Okay, Jeff?
Well, the thing that strikes me is that we've got a very historic town, but unless you know the history, you really don't have an overwhelming feeling for what the history of this town actually is. And I'm thinking about back when I was with the city of Peoria in Arizona, which was a suburb of Phoenix, and the city was trying to decide what made it special in terms of Phoenix. And they did quite a few theming and branding studies. One of the things that city had was a stadium for spring baseball. And so they created districts that celebrated sports and entertainment and things of that nature that kind of tied the districts together. And I'm thinking with Oregon City, we have many neighborhoods. If there was a way to create a thematic presence in each of the neighborhoods, and I'm not exactly sure what that is. Maybe that's taken through the park system and the trail system that ties all this together. But it seems like if we could find an overall theme, being that we're Oregon Trail, that's an obvious given, but also the architecture and the river and the falls and things of this nature, if we could find thematic elements that we could place along our roadways and in our parks and in our neighborhoods to kind of tie all the neighborhoods together, so that when somebody comes through the town, not knowing too much about Oregon City, they would have a sense of design, I guess, that what the city's all about. Maybe leading them to the museum and then some of the other things that we have that's going on for the city. I just don't think we celebrate it as much as we can. So that would be my input.
Sean?
Well, there's a lot of good topics that everybody said tonight, and I don't really want to repeat them, but the one that I came up, if I was called on first, was economic development. I believe that this is an opportunity for the commission and all the boards to work to keep us in the city. In other words, I don't want to have to go shopping in Tualatin or Portland or Clackamas. I want to be able to come home from work and spend my money in Oregon City. So all of those places that everybody else mentioned are important, but there's a big picture here. It's taken 20 years on some of these projects and nothing's ever happened. And look at the things that have occurred in places like Tualatin because they stepped up. So that's the only comment I want to make.
Okay, Troy.
Yeah, by the time you get to me, everyone said a lot of good things. I don't know, there's much more to say. But I'm kind of more the, I guess the kumbaya kind of, not so, a little more the touchy-feely for me. I agree with the economic development, but I guess to be a little specific for that on me is the downtown Willamette Falls project. That needs to be finished. That needs to be developed. That needs to be done. I don't think that fixes at all. I want to make it on record that I don't think that fixes the economic development situation, but it does bring economic development with the shops and different things, whatever's decided to come in there. It certainly helps that. The other thing is community involvement. You know, as we talk about committees and subcommittees and different things, you know, we throw names of people off the top of our head that can help with certain things, and they're the same names because it's the only people we know. And it's typically the people that are willing to volunteer and willing to step up. But we have 37,000 people in this community, and we need to ask for more help from people who will definitely be willing to help. And rather than our, you know, 50 to 100 go-tos, we need to give more people an opportunity to serve, and we need to ask more people to serve because there are people who are willing to serve when we ask them to commit to do so.
Okay, and I'm going to echo what Troy just said. And also, you know, Oregon has an ugly history when it comes to inclusiveness. Oregon City is now more diverse and needs to be more diverse and needs to incorporate the diversity that is moving into town. This old historian agrees that we need to celebrate our history, but be honest about it. I'm going to congratulate Matthew Weintraub and the Economic Development Department for doing what they are doing. We are looking at expanded tourism with more information. And also, please come here, open your business. Oregon City is here for you. We have jobs. We can create all kinds of wonderful new businesses. And yeah, there's my go rah rah. All right, Pete, next question.
Next slide, please. What additional ways would you like to participate in the Oregon City 2040 process? And are there other people, groups, or communities that we should be engaging with? I think it gets right to your question, your comment.
All right, Doug. Excuse me, wait a minute. I'm going to start with Troy.
Good.
I agree. I was going alphabetically. Troy first.
You want me to just answer the first question or both of these?
Answer what is up.
Okay. So what additional ways would you like to participate in the process? Well, I volunteered to be on the committee and I was rejected. So that's now on record since this is a public meeting. I don't know, I don't know what else there is. What other opportunities there are.
This is getting to not just other committees, but also methods of communication, particularly how to engage with disadvantaged communities as well. That's really what we're trying to do. Example is we are targeting our gift card program towards minority-owned businesses in town to get people to be engaged, and also doing mailings to all of the multifamily communities in the urban growth boundary. Something like. But what other ideas do you have?
Okay. Let's say, are there other groups, communities we should connect? Exclusive person. You know, I think digital is always really good because it's very efficient. You can make changes on the fly. It's fairly inexpensive. At the same time, there's so many opportunities with digital that if you only try one way, for example, we set up a Facebook page. Well, if you don't have Facebook, you don't see it, right? So then we tweet it out. Well, if you don't have Twitter, you don't see it. So you kind of have to do them all. But then if you don't have any social media, you don't see it. So you know, so the problem with digital is you have to kind of do it all. But the advantages of digital is it's very inexpensive. So what I would suggest is another way that digital works is some retarget marketing, which might be a better thing that you and I could talk offline about what that is and kind of how that works, but it's also fairly inexpensive for the amount of reach it can do to drop messages into individual devices. But also, I honestly think sometimes the good old-fashioned, walking the streets, and I know that's difficult today, and I don't mean, shaking hands, because that's a challenge today, but business owners and expanding our networks, going into businesses with posters in the windows or postcards and flyers that they're willing to put on their counters, that has the same logo, the same message, the hashtag OC2040, that becomes a recognizable hashtag. So they start seeing it everywhere they go, and it becomes a brand. And it becomes a message that you can't avoid no matter where you go, whether it's on the school district website, whether you go into the pool, whether you go into the Pioneer Community Center, whether you go to the Ermitinger House, wherever you go, you see this. And so you can't help but ask, what the heck is this all about? And then you start inquiring.
Okay, Sean. Who, by the way, Sean is our representative to this group.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Sean.
that's I was going to say, so the first answer is I'm already participating on that group in the process. The second thing, and I brought it up at the last meeting, is Troy kind of touched on it, but one of my concerns in another capacity outside of PrAC is with veterans in the city. And many of the veterans are not social media friendly. You've got older ladies and gentlemen that will show up to the VFW, for example, and they may take the time to fill out a survey at home and mail it back in. But without an opportunity like that, you're going to leave an entire demographic out. And so I think even in our last 2040 meeting, there was conversations about taking those to retirement centers in the area.
Yeah, that's right. And also the various lodges and
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff.
Is that me?
That's you, Jeff.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm on the county's aging services group as well. And so we've been working with things like Villages at the Falls and other elderly groups. And so I would second that last comment, that we really probably ought to be reaching out to some of the older folks in the community, especially those that have a history of living here, that could help with some of the historic aspects of it. And the other thing that comes to my mind is really as a result of the wildfire, our neighbors suggested that we get on the Redlands chit chat group to find out what was relevant going on with the fire. And I discovered that they are an extremely active community. And they're so nearby to us that would probably be one of the, you mentioned what other groups or communities. You're probably not thinking in terms of town communities, but if you were, I would certainly recommend maybe pulling them into the process to see what they might have to say.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We did hear that a little bit from some people, but that's good to hear it again. Yeah, that it's not just Oregon City; it's the people that are coming in and into Oregon City on a daily basis. And
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Doug.
Yeah, I think your timeline ought to be a bit flexible. And I know that, but listen, almost every group are Zooming or doing something in that fashion. This COVID crisis we're in has really inhibited the ability of community participation. And so I don't know what you can do about that. You've got this 1 November deadline that might be a little bit more flexible. But this is going to be going, this issue is going to be going through at least the middle of next year. And somehow we've got to have this process be enough flexible that some of these groups can really respond to these kinds of things. And they're not going to see it, and so they may not be having speakers. And I don't know how you deal with that, but I think that plus flexibility in your timeline has to be built into it.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Doug.
All right, Brent.
Hey, Pete. Okay, so a couple of things. You know, what additional ways would I like to participate in the OC 2040 process? I would like to be updated on a consistent basis. I got the email with the poll and I participated in it, and I love getting that. But I just don't want to be targeted one time and then not hear anything. I would like consistent updates, maybe 4 times a year, maybe every 3 months, you know, with updates of people's inputs and the direction that it's going forward. Transparency is going to be key. The other aspect is, you know, other groups or communities. I mean, right now we are living in a very turbulent time. The whole Black Lives Matter movement is huge. We should be including all ethnic groups, and I love hearing about including the elder groups. All groups need to be included. What's kind of interesting, though, is a lot of studies show that you're going to have a different reaction to digital media versus non-digital media with the age group. So, you know, your younger groups, they've grown up with digital media, they know how to use it. Your older groups, your veterans that were being discussed earlier, don't always know how to use it. So you're going to have to use all forms of media to make certain that people are all included in this. There is no one button fits all type of thing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Andy?
I'm almost there.
It works.
Since I feel like Troy now, because everyone else said exactly what I wanted to say and eloquated a lot more than I did. But I want to echo like what Brent said. I mean, there are lots of groups that need to be considered, but part of that inclusiveness is really the media outlook and how you actually contact those people. I never really thought of it as thinking of my 89-year-old father who would never be on Facebook or Instagram and things like that. And how do we reach those people? He doesn't go to a senior center. So different kinds of methods to be able to access different kinds of groups. I mean, you can almost look at the last fires that we've actually had and how we've actually had to reach out to various people. Some people didn't hear about it until later on. Some people didn't hear about it until too late. So just those kinds of things.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Okay, Alicia?
Hi, let's see, in terms of what additional ways I'd like to participate in the process, I'm not sure, honestly. Would like to hear more about possible opportunities for that. In terms of the question, are there other people, groups, or communities we should contact to make this an inclusive process? Yes, I think it would be imperative to be in contact and talk to the elders and have communications with key stakeholders within the Spanish-speaking population. Within our school district, we have the Todos Unidos program. My son has been in it for years, which is a bilingual program. And there are different, you know, kind of subgroups of that for parents, Spanish-speaking and English speaking, but I think that's a great way. I think also for the Slavic Russian community that's in the Oregon City, Beaver Creek area, I think getting on their radio stations is huge. I've done that for special events and programs, and what a difference that is to be interviewed. And I know so there's a couple main stations in the areas in the Portland metro area, and they're always looking for content and information to connect their communities, their cultural group to the city as a whole, and whatever city that is. So I would suggest that. In terms of the whole discussion of print and like social media, marketing and that sort of thing, I would say I agree with a lot that was said, but I would also want to stress, I found with what I do with programs and events within Portland, print is huge with a lot of our different cultural groups, with, you know, different minority groups. And making sure things are translated and that you go to the different cultural meetings, church meetings that they have, and have key people actually present that and translate and have them involved in kind of that translation process. So you're making sure you're explaining things that, you know, in a way that fits for their communication style. Yeah, I would. And then also with the print, we found more success in the print marketing with different diverse communities, multilingual communities. It takes a lot more time. It is expensive for translation, but it is well worth it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and Pete, me from Rivercrest.
Okay, I think that is, the next slide, please.
Wait, Pete, I wanted to answer.
What was your question? I didn't hear you.
Oh, no, it wasn't a question. We got an offer from Mike Mitchell to do a presentation at a Rivercrest Neighborhood Association meeting.
Yeah.
Most of our active participants are in the highest risk group for COVID-19.
Right.
And we are not meeting in person.
Right.
We also have younger people that for some interesting reason are not really Facebook, email, you name it, friendly. I have every other week or so contact with a lot of our active members. And I've answered my survey only once, I swear. But I need a way to collect information from our older members and submit it.
Yeah.
That isn't personally from me, because of the fact that no, we cannot meet in person.
Right.
And most of our members are not really tech savvy that have really supported this neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that's all right.
That's the question. So the method that we've suggested for doing that is to be a facilitator for those people to write down the responses to these same questions on paper, and you can send them to me and I will compile them, or you can go to the survey and enter them into the survey directly, and then just at the end of the survey you say what the group is that you did it with. But if that's too much,
so the survey
send them my way and I'll do it.
The survey won't know it's me sending in 100 entries.
Right. Well, somebody will have to do that. You know, I mean, you're kind of, what you're doing with the community conversation is synthesizing a lot of the similar comments. If you hear things again and again, like small town feel, economy, redevelop the falls, these are things we hear again and again. So, and that makes them important. So that's what we're suggesting. We are asking for homework from each of our project advisory team members, which is 35 members, to complete 2 community conversations by mid-October. Now we've extended the deadline. And after that, you know, we'll see what happens, because as Doug mentioned, we have to keep a flexible timeline. But we do have a very limited budget. We're getting our grant from DLCD, the first part, and the second part of our funding, the major part of our funding, is not in yet. It's from Oregon Department of Transportation, but it'll be here shortly. So,
Okay, I see you have a last question up on the screen. Please
yeah.
raise your hand if you want to respond to Pete's last question. Sean?
Yeah, hey Pete, can you put my name down on your report tonight as one of my two, since I should have been doing this?
Bad Sean. All right,
There, Sean, anytime.
Brett.
Hey, Pete. So I was just going to say, obviously, we all have a passion for Oregon City, and we all love it. And, you know, it's such a unique community and such a special place. And so we all, I guess what I'm trying to say is obviously what I just stated. What I was wondering is, do you have any subcommittee volunteer positions for that you might need help with in working on this?
Well, we spent about 2 months with recruitment for the project advisory team. If you go to the OC 2040 website, you can see all the positions and the names of the folks that are on that team.
Okay.
I would anticipate they're not all going to be able to hang in there. They are appointed by the mayor, but obviously with a team that large, they all have personal lives, people may not be able to stick with it. So if opportunities come up, we'll be looking for replacements. And this is just the project advisory team. Everybody has a say right now. You know, this visioning process is just the first part of it. There's no right or wrong answers at this point. I want to encourage everybody to sign up for our mailing list through the website, and encourage your friends and neighbors to do the same, because that way, whenever I do a bi-weekly email blast, Facebook blast, Instagram blast, they will get it via that website. So it's kind of critical that people sign up for the mailing list. And that's kind of one of the fundamental things. On top of that, we have the trail news going out quarterly with updates on the progress of the plan. And we're still compiling a lot of public comments. Our survey has had over 720 responses so far, which is pretty good. But we want more. So offline, shoot me an email, and be happy to suggest other ways to be involved.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Pete.
Okay. I don't see any other hands.
As I said, I can't find my hand.
Hi, Doug.
Yeah,
Doug, why can you not find your hand?
I can see a thumbs up and a clapping hand, but I can't see.
I don't care. You're up. Go.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to Troy's comment in terms of getting information out there in terms of what Oregon City has on the heritage side. Although we have signage, I don't know if there was a mechanism through, probably through our own Facebook, to find a place that's easy for them to click onto, where they can actually look at what hours the into the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center is, what hours these are open, what events are occurring. That's very easy for a person coming into Oregon City, has heard about it, to click on to see where to go to with a map indicating where that is. Maybe we have that, but I'm not aware of it.
To see important historical sites and other tourist sites. Yeah.
And other tourist sites, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And I have to say, I can't give you the exact link, but Matthew is creating a booklet that you can get at the elevator that takes you to different historical sites, and planning weekly or monthly, whatever, videos on things to see and do in Oregon City. And I'll have to send you an email later because I don't have
Yeah.
the site quickly available.
All right, yeah, well, I'll talk to Matt some more. I've got that written down here. Wow. Okay, thanks everybody. This has been really good. I got some fresh new ideas as well. I appreciate all of those. The video is being recorded, so I'll be putting a link of this video on the project website, but it's already going to be on the city website because it's a PrAC meeting, but we're putting links of all the community conversation videos with the advisory groups on the project website as well. I don't know how many hits they're getting. We haven't looked at that data yet, but yeah. Okay, well, thanks everybody. Final slide. That's my that's my contact information. I really appreciate your time.
Beautiful job.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care, everybody.
You too, Pete.
Member reports. Do any members have a report? Please raise your hand, or if you're Doug, just say what you have to say. Nothing. All right, I have to clarify something. The Oregon Parks Foundation, which is a 501c3 to support the parks, has blue bags out to return containers to the bottle drop. Dee Dee has corrected me. There is a specific process. They can't be crushed, whatever. Send me an email at Karen, Karin, Morey, Morey, @gmail.com to connect you to Dee Dee, who wants to give you the full list of do's and don'ts if you collect blue bags and help support. My son's monster addiction is really feeding them, but without the public locations open, primarily, I think the Lithia Subaru is one of the few places that's currently open for public donations, but you can request bags. But Dee Dee would prefer to give you her full instructions ahead of time, so email me for Dee Dee's contact info. All right. Future agenda items. And Sean and Kendall and I had a conversation the other day. Excuse me, staff reports. Kendall. I have to back up.
First, I'd just like to thank all my staff. As you guys are aware, we've been dealing with fires and responding to the fires. My staff, the park staff, really stepped up and really rallied to help with the mobilizing the evacuation site at Clackamas Park, working the phone lines. The aquatics facility opened up for showers and helping at the shelters. And many of the staff were affected by the evacuations, and just seeing them come together and meet the needs of other staff members and the community. They put in some very long hours, and I just really appreciate them coming to support the community in that way. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is I'm still working on developing a plan to get a deferred maintenance assessment done. So working on that list and trying to find a vendor or a consultant to work with in order to get those numbers verified and to get an assessment to solidify the numbers that we have. And it's still a priority that I'm working on to get our master plan updated. I think with getting our master plan updated, that will really help provide some direction in regards to our parks. where we can really invest in growth and in maintaining our parks. So that's going to be a priority. And we're still working on gathering some additional information from parks departments in the region to see how they compare in regards to their staffing and the management of their resources. And we would like to present that information to PRAC next month so we can share how we compare, how we are staffed, and how we compare nationally and regionally to other parks and recreation departments. We've also been affected by air quality issues. So a lot of our construction projects for last week were put on hold at TSW and DC Latourette. We've been working with staff as well, making sure that when they were working outside that they had proper equipment and N95 masks. So that's something that we've been navigating. The other thing is when we did get a lot of rain, we did have some issues with flooding at some of our parks in the Pioneer Center. So we've been dealing with those issues and getting those issues addressed. And we have some additional announcements in regards to openings. Rochelle, do you want to talk about the opening of the aquatics facility in Ermatinger?
Absolutely. Good evening. How's everybody?
Hey,
So yes, a few announcements. So we will be opening the pool October 5th to the community. So pools were originally in phase 2, and there was an update to the OHA guidelines, which pulled pools out of a phase. And so in phase 1, now we're able to open pools. So we've been working hard to train staff, get everybody updated on, we haven't been swimming since March. So we'll be working on that Friday and Saturday. The swim team will start this Monday, so we're going to ease back into opening. And then, yeah, October 5th is the big day that we're going to open back up. And so it's going to be pre-registration for lap swim activities and programs. We're going to have water exercise and water walking. So it'll be a slow reopening, which hopefully we can start to increase as we get used to the new guidelines and what it's like to be COVID safe opening the pool. So the other announcement too, so we're reopening the Ermatinger house October 3rd. And I did talk with Emily today, our house docent, and she has her first reservation to take a group through for a tour. So people are excited to get back in the house and get a guided tour. So some good bits of information there. So
yeah, that's a question here, Cheryl.
mm-hmm.
How did the movies go? The drive-in?
They
That's
didn't.
a good question. We actually ended up having to cancel the drive-in movies. So a couple different reasons. One, the site, the St. John site, ended up being an evacuation site. And then 2, we looped back with the contractor afterwards to see what the feasibility was to reschedule that. And he actually was busy responding to other sites that had damage to some of his equipment in different areas. So, and then we had to pivot in regard to where our priorities were, trying to reopen and get the pool back open and the Ermatinger house. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, hooray to Rochelle. I see Kathy's been online for the whole meeting, other than the wagons crossing the creek yet again in the wagon room. Tell us about Pioneer Center.
Yes, we had probably, well, definitely the largest flooding incident since I've been here, which has been 17 years. And I really want to thank Rochelle and John Waverly. Those two pulled together. I had lakes in the basement on a Friday, and it was bad. And I had a broom. And John came with a shop vac, and Rochelle had giant car-sized fans, and we got it cleaned out. It was bad. So I really, really appreciate my coworkers. And we're dealing with this in the middle of fires, frogs, boils, and a pandemic. So I was really happy that they were there.
Okay, Denise, anything to add?
I think that I'd like to send some kudos out to the facility staff who, and Seth, were running around like mad people trying to mitigate the smoke during the facilities being open and then the facilities being closed. They also were trying to manage, some crises out there at the same time. So facilities with 2 people, it's still a light staff for the amount of building space we have, and they did an amazing job trying to keep up with everything. And Tyrone S. Woods and DC Latourette are moving forward this week since, as Kendall mentioned, since they were shut down the previous week. So we lost 7 days on each of those sites. Those will probably be mitigated in a contract extension. We can't make up the time that we lost. So we'll have to extend the time to allow them to continue that work. I think the only other thing is just everybody's been fantastic. We had windstorms, fires, a number of our staff evacuated, and everybody was really still very willing to pitch in and work extremely hard, and a lot of long hours in there. So I think just kudos to all the staff for pitching in where it's needed.
Okay. All right. So we're down to future agenda items.
Hey, Karen, I have a hand up.
Yes. Who? I'm sorry.
It's Brent.
Hi, Brent.
Denise, quick question. With like the Tyrone Woods and the DC Latourette Park, with the extension of the 7 days, is that an additional cost, or do you have to negotiate that?
I don't believe we're going to be at an additional cost because everything shut down in construction.
Okay.
So we didn't have to waylay any deliveries or anything like that. We're just, everything shut down. So
okay.
I think we'll be okay. I think it'll be at the same cost. It'll just be a time extension.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Troy went back to my other screen. Troy.
Yeah, I just want to say, nice job, guys. Like, we're sitting here in our houses, at least for me, maybe I'm speaking for myself, wondering about my stuff, packing up my car, getting my stuff ready to evacuate. And you guys are running around taking care of your own families, plus all these facilities. And from what we see on the front, everything's fine. Like, Rochelle, Kendall, Denise, like, nice job. I just say kudos to you guys, because, we don't see this stuff. We don't see the fires you're putting out. No pun intended, by the way. Just, we don't see this. All we know is everything's running the way it's supposed to run, only to hear after the fact that in addition to your own personal families and lives, you're also taking care of the city stuff that's, I guess, kind of fallen apart to, just because of the circumstances. So thank you very much and nice job. And it's situations like this, talk about community involvement, as I mentioned before, it would also be nice if we had some sort of mechanism or avenue to even solicit some help. And I know sometimes that's more trouble than it's worth, because you don't want 50 people showing up with shop vacs and brooms to help you unflood, to get rid of the flood, because they may just be in the way. But I'm sure there's lots of people. I mean, I would have come to help if I knew there was need. So something to consider for the future, that there's a lot of people that would love to help. I know people were gathering their trucks and shovels and helping people put out fires at their own homes. And I would have been happy to come out and help with a flood if I knew it existed. So something to think about.
Okay, Denise, did you actually have to evacuate?
I did. We were level 3 on
so. Thank you, girl.
Thank you, guys. And thank you for the offer of help.
I got something else.
Yes, Doug.
This is my last year on, and I'm wondering when the announcement of openings for the PrAC go out.
I missed the end of that. What?
When do the announcements for openings for the PrAC go out?
I haven't seen openings for new appointments yet. It's only September.
They're usually
Usually that's about October, November.
That's a
And
question. That's a question for Kendall, probably.
Hmm?
That's a question for Kendall, probably.
Okay, I'm trying to give Kendall a break as the new guy. Love the smile, Kendall. Usually Katie sends out openings on committees in October, and I'm not completely up on which of us, I'm suspecting me, may be ending our first or second appointment to the committee. Well, let's give Kendall some time to come up. Because, hello, COVID-19, wildfires, smoke, floods. Kendall, thank you so much for coming to work for us. And we hope to make it pleasant, not unpleasant. All right, so one of the things I wanted to address under our future agenda items, we had been noting dates that they were last addressed and when we want to address them again. Tyronis Woods, we got a new update tonight. Parks and Recreation funding is actually deferred maintenance plus staffing. And in the conversation Sean and I had with Kendall, there is a plan for an RFP to start looking at the parks maintenance plan and also identifying the deferred maintenance issues we have, as well as staffing. I think we need to break up the Parks and Recreation funding into staffing and deferred maintenance, as well as we have left out the Parks Master Plan. Also, already handed this one in, but what shows up on the agenda as Clackamas Park Master Plan is actually Clackamas. So we do need an update on that. Is there any of the items on our future agenda items that anyone thinks are crucial for the October meeting? And I'm going to look for hands. Troy.
Sorry, I just didn't take my hand down from before.
Ah,
So
okay,
I'm
Sean.
done.
And my hand was up for the previous topic. Just to tell you, I looked up in my email, and last year committee announcements came out October 15th or 14th.
Okay, thank you. I thought that was about when they came up. Anybody feedback on what I just said on future agenda items? All right, I think we're good. Going to use my mouse again to say we are adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Everybody.
Thank you, Kathy.